Okay. Cool. Thanks for the message. Thanks for the time. Let me send you the link to the board, just in case. So this is just for anyone to keep track of any notes. Oops, sorry. Yeah, no problem. So there is, let me just get a board on the very bottom. So the purpose of today is to review the prototype and the user feedback, and then ideally also to look at how to prioritize the upcoming iteration, or the basically what we need to improve on with based on the feedback on the prototype and the features or the design of it, essentially. And so we'll do this similarly as last time when, or like at the last sprint. I'm just going to repost the link to the Miro board in the chat, where we started off our conversation on just generally everything. And now we kind of have something tangible, but the conversation that we're going to run is going to be still very like streamlined in terms of if one person is talking, then everybody else writes down notes, and we'll just frame them as how might we's, and that will help us later to decide what to focus on, what to progress. So as you are receiving any, or as you're listening to any feedback or any, even when we just go through the prototype at first and second, just write down everything that resonates with you, anything that you think seems important to improve on or to work on, but also remember to write down any ideas that might pop up in your head that could be relevant. So it doesn't have to be doable or related to, you know, improving anything in particular in the prototype. It could be things that you see, you pick up on, and you think that's worth just keeping in mind and remembering, or even sharing later on, because we will read through those afterwards and then vote on them, and then decide what to focus on, what could be interesting to work on. So anyway, thank you so much for coming around. Welcome. Without further ado, let's just start. And if anyone else is going to join, since this meeting is also being recorded, they can basically review my quick introduction anyway. So I would suggest maybe for Charlie to go through the prototype and just kind of share his thoughts on like any design decisions, or just present the prototype. And then Huichi is going to present the summary of the user feedback. Is that cool? You're mute. Nice.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just load it. Share my screen.
Nice.
I kind of forgot that I was the designer on this.
It's like just magically appeared.
There we go.
Awesome.
It normally does, you know, like
that's true.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Just magic from the team. Yeah, I'll go through it and start. Yeah, we had an email just to onboard people into it. In this case, it's just an expert getting the details that there's a project running. The first page, we just have the project page. We have some details at the front, and then who's collaborating. Key into some of the design decisions here is this idea of like the profiles exploring. So each profile is kind of looks like a clickable button or icon, so you can go through to it. And then we have the details of like the docs and the compensation for each role, and apply button. For this, somebody applies. In this case, it's a user researcher expert. They go through this. They go back to the previous page. They have the details. In this, they need to select that they're going to do that whole task, but there is a collapsible list of all the actual subtasks within it as well. This kind of really works from a collaborator point of view, but also the fact that there's only one key task as an expert to go through. Why would you be chosen? And they agree some terms and conditions. This is more just like quite internally for us and probably for other projects, that when somebody's joining a project, they need to agree that they're actually going to do the work and show up and so forth. As it just filled in, they get thanked for their application, some time, and they can go back to the project page and it just shows their application and it's being reviewed. Some time passes, creative director approves them. They go through. We've got this just to show that they got a notification at the top and that they can view applications from collaborators. They click that and we have the collaborator applications here. We've just given them the badges. There's links to the profiles and a link to confirm, and also just a little bit of text which the collaborator puts in for why they'll be good for the project. In this, they go to their profile. We're currently just testing a few different ideas, but the idea of different organizations, and you've got skills. Really, we looked at like deep work, having like different sort of levels within each property, but then other organizations could create badges with images. We kept it very basic with just like one featured project and a timeline of contributions from different organizations, and also kind of like a reputation scoring. From here, you can get more details of Deep Work Studio. You can see on the project the more details of the reviewer, and it gives you their feedback along with what tasks they completed in that and any recommended improvements. You'll see this is actually the data input in the feedback form later. In the prototype, they go back and then they click on Deep Work to actually go into the skill tree view. I won't go too much detail, mainly this is Andre's work, but yeah, it's very detailed. I guess we'll go through it in the feedback. There's further details on each tab, basically, which you hover over on the info icon to get it. Yeah, just go back from that, back to this. Then you need to go back to the project overview to actually select somebody. So you confirm Vikrant. You then select their tasks. So you can see that they have the capabilities or not. And you also put in why. At this stage, you can also start to adjust the payment calculator based on the amount of effort that each person is going to do. And you can see the projected payment for each user. Just confirming that. Thank you for the confirmation. Then the project starts. When it's completed, you get an email and you use a feedback collaborator and add to profile. I need something about payment, I just realized, but we go through here into how was your collaboration. From a design, it's just a 4-step process to give feedback, credentials, calculate the pay, and get payment. So in here, you've got what could be done better, what did Vikrant do well, how can Vikrant improve, and just like a little indicator of how much help is needed. And then that's just filled in. Next, you confirms that the tasks they completed or over delivered on. Next. Then we have the pay calculator again, so you can confirm how much you're going to get paid. You click on the confirm button, which takes you to this payment. We're expecting that each organization and Deep Work will have its own system for payments. So you click request payments, which means you go externally to somewhere else. You complete that process in a new window or new tab. Once you close that, you're back on this page, so you can confirm that you've done the process above. Click confirm. Tick the box, click confirm, and then you get this lovely thank you screen with Pickle Rick before going back to all projects overview. And this just gives you all the projects split between projects which are available to you and all projects and finished projects. You can also have different organizations in this view as well. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Very cool. All right. I'll just pass on to Huichi and you can present the slides.
Great.
Whenever you're
Just
ready.
share my screen. Can you see my screen there? Great. So myself and Andre had a great time doing the user testing. We had some laugh anyway, but all good. So I'll begin. So we're just going to go over what we did for the research, the long-term goals, sprint questions, and the detailed feedback and some recommendations moving forward. We interviewed and user tested 7 users of varying deep work levels, so expert and collaborators, all of them familiar with the current system on Discord and have some level of understanding of the governance protocols. Here are the 7 users. I won't go through them in detail on this call, but I'll share the slides with you after this. So from the Hypersprint, the long-term goal was that in 2 years, hang on, I'll just turn this off, sorry. In 2 years, Deep Work will be the decentralized proof of work, skill, reputation protocol used by most organizations for establishing trust between people and organizations, tracking skills of members, finding people with certain skills. There was a highly expressed interest in DeepWorks' new protocol, as it's much better than using the current Discord system. The desire to find work and proceed with the process is ideal to have all in one platform. Users were interested in seeing the various projects and they would dive deeper into each one before making the application themselves. The main blocker was the legitimacy of the applicant's skills. From our user interviews and tests, the main areas to improve are clarity on how many times the task of the skill tree were accomplished by the applicants, more details on the Deep Work badges and reputation system, and payment to be calculated based on tasks, or having more details to help the decision maker decide. The 3 sprint questions were, can we provide enough value to get enough traction and create network effects and large scale adoption? The second one was, can we ensure legitimacy of skills, credentials, and ensure it maps to reality? And third, can skills hold enough meaning, interoperable, have structure, and standardized between organizations? So to answer the first one, yes, we need more information to be able to provide enough value to get enough traction and create a network effect and increase large-scale adoption. The users responded positively in using Deep Work protocol to find work. Having the skill system allowed individuals to be interested in working on various tasks to complete their badges. However, more explanation is needed to distinguish Deep Work and organization, like the project owners, those who propose work to the protocol. The second question was, yes, that they needed more verification to ensure legitimacy of skills and credentials to ensure it maps to reality. Not all of the users were familiar with other DAO and governance protocols, hence having the reputation system linked to a third party needs more explanation. They were interested to see how many times the task of the skill tree was completed. So to summarize, each applicant, they wanted to see how such applicant would achieve the reputation points, where they got it from, projects that they've worked in the past. So this feedback process is highly relevant. Perhaps it should be task-based. And lastly, can skills hold enough meaning to be interoperable and have structure standardization between organizations? Maybe. Due to the prototype, users either skimmed or was confused on the Craft 19 screen. It was unclear whether this was another organization with their own skill tree. The Deep Work badges and skill tree made sense. Some improvements can be made to clarify the linear process of tasks, how ratings are calculated, and how to write feedback for collaborators. All these are relevant details for the profile and reviewer of the next project. So the first screen I put were the email notifications, starting with the ones that they were invited to the project. The positive feedback that we got from users was that it was easier than Discord, and some improvements that can be made are related to copies. So including specific dates for various roles, what type of applications will be worked on, like a mobile app, tools, website, etc., and clarify who the email is from. So from Deep Work organization or the project owner proposal. Then we get on to the project page. Overall, the users liked the visual design. They commented on the transparency of the compensation within various roles, and they would all explore the project link. To improve, we can ensure they were unsure of where the project link would lead to, whether it's the doc, the website, social media, etc. The project date needs more clarifications. Like they were confused on which date specifically that they had to work on depending on what role. And all the users had confusion about the guide and docs. I think this was the copy, so maybe changes can be made to that. On this page specifically, it was unclear on the distinction of their own role. So maybe we can highlight the box or the role of the profile owner, in this case, the user researcher. And the compensation range here was confusing. They were unsure on how it was calculated, so it needs more info. Then we move on to the expert application. The tasks here are a good reminder of what they're expected to work on. For those that have worked with DeepWork a numerous amount of time, they really like the closed list so that they didn't have to be reminded of what they'll be doing again. The opportunities for improvement here, again, the guide and docs, adding the date and schedule, and perhaps allowing flexibility of options. So if they couldn't do user testing today, maybe they can do it tomorrow. And then the open question here, why you should be chosen, it needs a little prompt or template on how to write the answer. And then the user research expert application, they would also like to know who is reviewing this application. And lastly, there was a suggestion on exporting these tasks to third-party applications such as Jira or Trello to consider.
I think one thing I would also mention to that screen before, just want to add that I think pretty much everybody was interested in the task details in case they get changed or improved on or slightly altered as documentation kind of evolves over time, so that they can kind of look into whether they haven't forgotten what that means. And I think most people obviously were kind of aware that that would lead to an external place, but they kind of expected it almost to be within that interface so that they could click and that would expand the description of the particular task. That's
Thank
it.
you. Moving on to review the collaborator applications. A majority of noticed that this notification was clear. The question was, if they were to go onto another page, will that still be visible? Opportunities for improvement, the applying for filter here and sort by under collaborator applications was unclear, but when we asked them about what they would expect, they thought it would be filtered by number of badges, role that they were applying for, or location. Some explanation is needed on the word collaborator for those who weren't familiar with the DeepWork process. Suggestions were made on using WorkBuddy, which was mentioned that it doesn't sound great, but perhaps there's another alternative that we can find. Then on the collaborator applications, there's the DeepWork badges. People assume that 15 badges must be better than 8. So improvements to be made on that. How do we clarify the difference here? And another point was that the profiles, all these profiles here looks like buttons. So it makes the call to action button to confirm the applications less visible. Perhaps using a color code to distinguish the user profile from others. So in this case, the user research expert here. Then moving on to review the collaborator profile, all of the users made positive comments on the color coding of the contributions and the overall page. They like to see the featured products, and they would like to see all the other projects that they've worked on in the past. And opportunities for improvement. I know this was a prototype, so people were unclear, but they needed more info on the skill tree if it was a different organization. And they were unclear on how the reputation was calculated. How did they get it? It'd be good to see if there's a max number. And then the last thing was to hover over these skill badges to prompt the user to click, because they didn't know that until the next screen. So clicking into the collaborator feedback mainly was very positive. The feedback from the feature project is very useful. They like to see the task completed, recommended improvements, nothing else to add, and perhaps moving this close button to somewhere at the top because they missed it. Collaborator skills. So the skill tree is interesting. They weren't sure if it was a linear process, if they have to complete each task line by line. So how do we I don't know, make the design more, I don't know how to phrase it. Yeah.
Oh, non-linear.
Yeah, I'll show them the picture.
Yeah.
Non-linear. Opportunities for improvements. So to show how many times each task can be completed. So users were unclear about if Spikerin, for example, completed one skill for one project, that means he checked it, but he also could have completed it 5 times for different projects. So to make that clear on the profiles. And for the tools and capabilities, they thought the subscriptions were irrelevant to the profile. And to confirm the collaborators' capabilities and tools on the application page is confusing as they're reviewing somebody else's application. So continuing on, the positives on this page were that they understood what capability confirmed means, that the users previously achieved and did this task. The task split makes sense. The opportunities for improvement here is the payment calculator confused everybody a little. They thought it should be calculated based on the number of tasks, and that experts were confused why they were the ones making the decision on doing the payment. And then clarity on who sees the open questions. So here, why should Vicrim be chosen, whether the applicant sees it or everybody, it's open to the public. Feedback form. This is after the project's been done. So in terms of questions, they wouldn't make any additional changes. The leaving feedback to add the project to the profile is a good idea. And it was great to see this progression bar, that there was only 4 steps. There was some improvements that could be made in terms of how to write feedback, whether it's with a template or bullet points. So the expert could know how to write it properly. Who sees this feedback, whether it's public or just the applicant, and perhaps choosing another word for autodidactic, I can't say the word. Yeah, that needs to be changed. And on this form, it was just positive. It made sense to confirm the task again that was completed. Going back to the payment calculator, a guy mentioned that the payment split gives me anxiety. So perhaps using the payment to be calculated based on the tasks that were completed, and or giving more details on how the slider or splitting works. Positives on the payment, continuing on with the payment page, it gave Typeform vibes. It was a quick process and payment system made sense. Opportunities for improvement, the design to make it clear that request payment is external. So I believe this was in purple. They wanted it to be in white to make it sure. Just a design thing. And then clarity on when the payment will be made. And that's it. Everybody loved the Pickle Rick. And back to the project overview. It was great to see the finished projects. Opportunities for improvement here is to make the distinction between projects for you and all projects. So perhaps a little subheading under the title to describe what's the difference between projects for you and all projects. And just some recommendations from the user testing that we completed. Perhaps adding a database of all the profiles, as applicants could see the database of all the projects, what works needs to be accomplished. It's also important to factor in other skills that people may have. So having a visibility on all the profiles allow project owners, experts to consider a wider range of applicants. That's it. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much, Richie. Great work. All right. So does anybody have any questions as well? So I was also on almost all of the interviews. So for me, it's pretty much everything is clear, but there's also a couple more things that I have on my mind because I was kind of looking to also like smaller details, things like visual design changes. I think some of them were related to just like colors of links. There was one comment which I actually also think is fair, but maybe worth discussing, which is that the profile links, even though pretty much everybody clicked on them and was aware that they could explore it, but the actual kind of profiles, they look pretty much the same as the CTAs. And so as something that is also a means of exploration, it becomes almost, it devalues the importance of the profile because it is kind of visually very similar or even like larger than CTAs. So we'd need some kind of like polish on the understanding, or like I guess the visual language. I would say that's like visual polish and probably not really necessary right now.
I have a solution already.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect. Nice. I think aside from that, I don't really remember anything that I would add. Does anybody else have any questions? So anything in particular related to either the project page? I think the project page, some kind of schedule was probably the most requested thing that is prominent to me, which you mentioned. Or the profile page, which is something that just probably would need a little bit of reordering and cleanup. But yeah, any other thoughts or questions?
I have a question, just clarifying. There's something called Crafty 19. I'm not sure what that is, and does it kind of represents a separate organization as an example, or?
Yeah, exactly. So sorry, that's my mistake. I just took a random name of a random company, basically just a restaurant my friend is running. But I thought that I didn't put enough effort into actually making it clear that that is a different organization. But yes, it was a placeholder for pretty much any other organization that has their own skill tree. And there could be as many as you want, essentially, stacked up with their own skill trees that people are expanding on.
Yeah, so that's what I thought, and I think there was a feedback somewhere about this. It's just maybe it's not the first kind of goal of the system, but as you grow the number of organizations, this might get very complex very fast. So you might have worked for 10 different organizations, each one has like 10 skills, or skill like professions. Each profession has its own skill trees, and there's like thousands of different badges. And there's definitely like a huge problem of how me as profile owner, how do I create my own profile? How do I prioritize what is actually I want to showcase and what I maybe want to hide? And then how does it, how do we make it easy for people browsing profile pages to just make sense of all that data?
Yeah, I agree. It seems like there is the most prominent thing that people were interested in were the featured projects. And also feel free, Huichi, to disagree if I say something, if I'm like mistaking or, you know, making shit up. But I think that, so from what I remember, pretty much like almost everybody resonated really well with the featured projects, almost higher than the actual organizational kind of skill tree. And these projects technically they don't need to be related to a particular skill tree. So they can be like just featured projects that someone else has endorsed you on, or like provided context on, this is the work that you've done and here's my feedback, and also here's who I am. I think another piece worth thinking about, and this is not something that is required right now in the interface, but it's something that we need to think about early on enough in terms of a data model for this entire structure, because the organizations have their own skills, but they might be, and as you say, Stefan, also at some point they can overlap, because there might be a lot of different organizations, but they might have similar things that they would do. So they could be several design agencies that you would work for, or several development shops, and they have maybe their own skill trees, but in some sense, it also, like, these skills are also connected because they're from the same like domain, which is design, for example. So one of those things will be also creating some way of making these connections clear, that there is almost like a tag that is something that functions across organizations, that connects different skills and tasks, but is still something that's easily findable and representative on the profile page. Does anybody else have anything, any questions?
Yeah. Hi guys.
Hey, Jesse.
It's good work. It's fun to be on this side of things. I can see how our clients get overwhelmed, because I'm very overwhelmed. I had a question. If you could clarify, because you mentioned different organizations, there's some parts of the design that like filter by organization. Could you clarify what the goal is with that?
So you mean on the profile page?
Well, just in general, do you imagine like multiple organizations using this at the same time, or do you imagine, like, white labeling this for a different organization, or what is the end goal?
Right.
There?
So one of the ideas is, cool. One of the ideas to provide that to other organizations is to create some value that an organization would see in using this platform. And one of the main, and it's like, imagine that being an open source tool. So everybody could just use that for themselves and like use it for whichever work they are doing and for their workers as well. And what seems to be most valuable at the moment is that this is a tool that can keep track of the skills within a community. So let's say for us in Deep Work, we have like, I don't know, 100 people. Everybody's good at different things, but as people start working more, contributing more, and as the community also grows, it becomes harder to see and overlook everybody's contribution and everybody's skill as well. So it will be harder for you, for example, to find someone who can write a good article, or because everybody could say, I can do that, but only a few people will be actually qualified enough from your perspective to do that kind of work. And that's kind of the issue that most organizations see this solving or resolving, is by providing context on the skill level and the abilities of their individual members within that community. And across organizations, that will also work, because you would not only create portfolios for your own organization, but then you'll also see if someone joins from a different DAO or organization to your community, you'll know what they're good at, because they've used the same tool, they have the same profile but they use it in a different place with different people. And that's kind of the connection that will enable organizations to have a better idea of who's skilled in what work, so that they can basically put together projects that are just better coordinated than if you would have to do interviews with every individual all the time. I think that's probably the biggest value in connecting those, and obviously things like just having giving individuals within the community giving individuals within the community kind of an identity which tracks their skill and their work, almost like a working portfolio, and also giving people the ability to scale up, so to train and educate each other without having you being the only person who knows everything, like if you go to that process once and you've kind of taught someone else that skill, they can use the same platform to teach that to another like set of people. And so the more people use that, the more kind of that knowledge spreads by actually working on stuff. And this could also be, so one of the testers also mentioned an example where she was struggling with the onboarding of new users on their in their community. So how do you actually teach someone that what is going on and how the whole organization works? And so with this tool, she could put together a project, which is like one person is leading it, but then other people could collaborate on it. And as they learn through how everything works, they also become a teacher themselves, and then they can pass on the information. So it doesn't require one person to teach people over and over again, but it just like naturally allows this kind of knowledge sharing and education, and makes it more scalable. Does that more or less answer your question?
Yeah, it went well beyond answering my question, but you included an answer. And have you guys, it's more on the technical side, but have you guys heard of verifiable credentials?
Yeah, so there's a lot of projects that do very similar or that have similar kind of work. I think Stepan is probably the deepest in that area. He's actually working on pretty much exactly that. So maybe you can just quickly tell a few words about your work.
Yeah, just so I'm working like last 4 years on SSI, verifiable credentials, decentralized identifiers from like technology standpoint. I think it's a good technology to base on, but verifiable credentials spec or most of the projects, it doesn't really solve the problem of like showing skills of people or building a taxonomy or making the system universal across different organizations. So I think it's definitely the right technology to use, because unlike something like NFT or POAP or all these on-chain methods, you don't always want your private information, especially if like maybe your skill is not good. It shouldn't force you to make this public on blockchain forever persistent. And yeah, so I'm spending a lot of time working from like the architecture standpoint on how the basically decentralized reputation system can be built, and this might be just a good experiment and learning exercise for that. I don't know if that's helpful.
There's also a lot of other projects that are going in that direction. There's also one of the testers, or like a friend of mine, shared DNS.xyz. It's not really verifying credentials, but it's something that maps a Web3 identity to a profile. But yeah, the rest is more. It's probably more of a work in progress, because we won't be able, like, we shouldn't jump into Web3 right away as like verifying work with that technology. Is more, we'll have to kind of slowly develop and see which pieces work and which break in Web2, and then only automate those that are required to be automated in Web3, also long-term, to save gas costs and make the whole system more resilient. All right, cool. Any other thoughts? Questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go unfiltered.
Please.
Yeah, I notice I'm getting a bit lost in the prototype. Like if I just zap through the Figma file a bit, I don't know where I am, which is a bit surprising, since I should know all the content, right? But I think maybe that goes to what you were mentioning earlier about the visual language needing some more, because like a bunch of the cards represent different entities but look very similar, especially when you squint or when you look at a look from a distance, but especially like where you are in the hierarchy of things is not always clear.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. That there was one comment on the flow in general. Here we just decided to kind of focus on identity and the project page. So that's why that's kind of included in the beginning. It's probably more useful to start off with the actual project's overview and then guide people through kind of that process, because that creates a better understanding of or mental model of the hierarchy of these of the screens, and kind of separating out the different levels, because the profile looks very similar to the actual project page, and the navigation back and forth is very basic. I think also on that note, what we should focus on for the iteration is to put together a prototype that's kind of that resolves some of the UX issues and is going to be more dynamic in terms of like a click dummy. Because right now it's just built for user testing. It's just built for being able to run interviews, but not really for like self-exploration and getting a mental model for how this is put together. But yeah, that's definitely one of the things that we need to resolve as well. Is like, how do we stitch it so that people can just explore it on their own a little bit. I think one of the goals, as I was mentioning to Charlie earlier today, for the iteration or like finishing the iteration is putting together this prototype so that we can share it with like the working groups around SSIs or skills, and see who resonates with that and who would be able or would want to contribute in building this out and continuing to work on this in the future. And in order to do that, it just has to be a nice and like easily explorable prototype, rather than something that we can only guide through on an interview. And yeah, also potentially if any organizations are issuing grants, that's also something we can look into, like how much we can fund the actual development of this.
So if we're doing reactions, let me add a few things. So I think that the dark theme is super sleek, but kind of similar to Jesse. It feels like non-differentiated yet. And I assume that if we had maybe one or two more passes, it would be much easier to focus or highlight some of the most important things. And for I did not go through the whole sprint. I didn't do full user testing and haven't seen the Figma file, but there are definitely some overlaps there. So let's say in the first page, this button with profile, I think it's really cool. But then just thinking about the previous project and the next iteration, thinking for myself as a user, if there is an empty spot, maybe you can highlight which projects have those empty spots, so my attention is drawn there. The same as when we have this long list of tasks, you know, there are 15 of them and they look very similar, but one of them might be 1 hour and the other one might be 1 day. And also the dates might be different. So probably, you know, just having one or two more iterations and trying to use that will also help to build this, you know, visual hierarchy. But overall, you know, like it's super sleek. I love the stepper. It looks really, really great. So that's a very kind of like high level comment. Now, 3 things which are more like opportunities. So skill trees, right? I do remember when we were doing the Colony sprint that I felt, you know, very much inspired by games. I used to play role-playing games. It's probably something like that. And the other piece there is deep linking. So Andre, we had the discussion that on Clubhouse you can see who invited you, and if you get the data model right, it might be people just suddenly starting to explore those profiles. So I see that Andre worked on the sprint with Colony. I go to the Colony project, I see there were other people who worked on that. It's like, oh, who was the designer? I like this. And what other projects this person did. And, you know, like you can start just going in circles and dig deeper. It's like, who taught them this skill? You know, like who was their expert? Who did they guide? And, you know, like I personally see a lot of opportunity in having those graphs. There might be some really valuable info, because nowadays you put on your, let's say, CV or LinkedIn and say, hey, I worked or I did projects for Coca-Cola, whatever else. But in this case, it can be already embedded in this decentralized model. So that's one thing. The other one is, again, drawing comparison with the Colony sprint. I think discovery and search are the key challenges and the key opportunities. So even nowadays, when I'm creating a profile, let's say I would call myself an innovation consultant. I might find, like when I have a drop down and like there's innovation manager, but I'm not innovation manager, or I have, like management consultant, right? So how to create the most representable and easy to find and discover and understand trees between the different organizations and projects and tasks. I think that's a big challenge, but also a great opportunity. And like last but not least, I don't know why only now, but I recall the Open Collective that we used for some other stuff, which is an open source project that helps you distribute payments. So instead of you doing all the back office, you select a host and they help you do the invoices, payments, whatever else, and you pay a small piece of that. But why this is important or relevant, because you see the whole transparency, how money was spent in a traditional system. So imagine that you start combining those systems together. So you have Open Collective for, let's say, traditional fiat payments. You have something else for transparency when it comes to crypto payments, and then you have system like DeepWork working on the back end, showing who was on the project, what kind of skills were there, how much they were paid, like when. And so it might, again, open up a really interesting opportunity. And maybe one of the sources of inspiration here when it comes, goes back to this discovery and search is Gitcoin. Because I realized that I'm not very active on Gitcoin, but I started to check, who supported the project and what other project they supported, and when was that. So again, lots of opportunities. I think 1 or 2 more iterations would help to nail down a lot of things. But it's definitely a long-term, project to nail it down and deploy it in a reliable way. But very good progress.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, it's tricky, and I agree to all comments and ideas. The discovery and search is certainly one of the biggest problems or issues that need to be solved. In terms of roadmap, I think we're just kind of trying to leverage the opportunities for, so basically trying to leverage this tool to automate everything within DeepWork first, so that we at least have a sustainable system that can continuously finance the development of this. Because like the more efficient we can do stuff at DeepWork Studio, the more time and resources we would have to funnel into this project. So that's kind of the highest priority for the near term. I think long term or like midterm, these are going to be the problems to kind of keep working on at the same time and thinking about how to prepare and how to design for something that should be more scalable and accessible to many people and useful in terms of the connections between organizations, peoples and their skills, and the search and discovery. There was an interesting screenshot that Ruchi mentioned earlier, and I think you moved it into this board somewhere now, or maybe already gone. There's a screenshot from a game from like Civilization, I think it's called Beyond Earth, or maybe it's already gone. No, okay, he's gone. But anyway, so essentially it was an alternative way to visualize the skill tree as something that starts at the center. I don't know I don't know where that particular screenshot comes from, but I think it is from Beyond Earth, right?
That's what Michael said, and I found it on Google.
Yeah, okay, yeah, makes sense. I think it is. So I also watched the trailer yesterday and tried to install it, but didn't have enough time anymore. But yeah, it looks like that. And so the idea is basically that the skill tree starts actually at the center, not at the top, as something that people evolve into different directions. And that is like, it is, I think, a project and kind of what do you call it? Like an effort in itself to create this data model and graph as correctly as possible, so that you actually enable for this discovery that you're mentioning, like finding where other people work on, and like who are the other people in your like mental map and network, but also how are your skills expanding within the different domains that you're interested in. And also kind of making sure that you summarize those organizational skills into domains of a skill, like cluster them somehow. So there's, I think, many different approaches that we can take, and it's something that we definitely need to explore. I don't have a precise solution for that, but it's just something to keep in mind for the future, because I think that's a better way to represent it.
Yeah, I'm actually super excited with this idea, and just totally concur this idea about the linkage. I think it's crucial, especially for the protocol. And the reason is, so when we were doing the initial design, or like design thinking sprint, there was something about, I think it was one of the goals, how do we enable network effects? So network effects is not about one application using it, although that's great if you have more people. But when you have the single protocol that is shared by multiple organizations, and then these, so games are always simplification. In reality, this skill tree would, even like for the same professional, you can have, like, I'm product manager. Product manager competencies are widely different across organizations, or like technical product, or yeah, even this, you can have the same title and you can focus on delivery, on discovery, on optimization, on working with engineers mostly, working with customers mostly, managing people mostly, and that applies to the same profession. But the smaller building blocks are the same. So you can have this design, customer interview skill, and that might be part of 10 different occupations or requirements. And then I think it is just there's immense value in creating a basic infrastructure for building such a graph. It won't be ideal at start, but what will happen? So there's all three parties, all three types of customers who actually get value from this. First is organization who can now hire or find people with proven capabilities and competencies. It's individual who can find what's they're missing or what is possible to. So if I'm entering a new space, especially, I want to know, like, what are potential directions, like how can I improve myself, and then each skill can actually have as well as ability to prove that or receive that badge. You can also have like a short document saying, like, here's a few YouTube videos and a few exercises and a few books that will help you personally. So it actually replaces education, or at least helps education. And then what are we saying? Yeah, so basically, so I think it's a kind of very deep rabbit hole. Definitely, like it's expanding the scope a lot, but there's immense value in trying to quantify professions, because LinkedIn does what LinkedIn does is just you're incentivized to have as many likes for the most kind of interesting, visible those recommendations, but they don't represent anything. It's just words, basically self-reports, or you ask your friends to do. Yeah, so it's a complicated problem, but a lot of value can be extracted.
I agree. Yeah. Charlie, should we do some voting on these, or like, should we do it like, so by the way, I know this call is set up for 1 hour, but I would assume that Charlie and I are going to stick around here for a bit longer. Feel free to jump off whenever you need to, but I would say, like, should we do the voting right now and decide on what to improve?
Yeah, let's do the voting. And then I think it's really like us just going through the prototype and just deciding who's going to do what page, basically.
That sounds good. Yeah.
I think we probably don't have to do more than voting, because a lot of it is like small UX changes, which we can just do from the presentation doc. And then I think right at the end, we'll go back to this and just check we've covered everything that's been prioritized by everybody else. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
sounds great to me.
Yeah.
I'm
Sorry, my
just-
video is off. It's just the internet here is shit.
Let me just look at the calendar real quick. Then we can probably, so either we would do another round of user testing on Monday 13th. I can check it out, but otherwise let's just set up I'll set up a calendar invite for Tuesday 31st for a review, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Or actually, yeah, no, let's do it for Tuesday. Okay, cool. I'll do that in a moment. I'll just also put it in the community calendar.
If we're going to
Cool.
test, I recommend doing it on the Monday the 30th.
Testing or the review?
The testing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Right. Okay, it's done. So it's in the community calendar. Cool. Let's do some voting then. So based on everything that's here, it's quite a lot. Thanks, Stefan. Great to see you, and we'll keep on conversing. And
Can I vote quickly? Because I
Oh, yeah,
have
yeah.
a few that I really want to
Please.
show. How many votes do we get each?
let's do 5 each.
Okay.
I'll set a timer on 5 minutes.
I'll need to hop off as well in 2 minutes.
Cool. Thanks, Guichi, so much for your help.
And guys, a different question. Are we going to organize them into themes, or are we just jumping into voting?
Just voting.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't make the music happen right now. I'll do it next time. Didn't prepare for that. And YouTube's gonna kill me if I stream Spotify again. They send a warning.
There's some way to so that we hear it and YouTube doesn't, but it's complicated.
I'll set it up next time. It's actually, it should be easy with OBS.
Okay, so I have to drop for the next call, but yeah,
All
thanks
right,
a lot.
cool.
That looks amazing.
Thanks,
Great,
Stefan.
yeah, great
Glad,
mockups.
glad
Okay,
to
see you.
help. See you. Enjoy. I need maybe like 10 more seconds. Yeah, although actually, I think this is all very clear. Just gonna do one here. Okay. Great. So we have, I'm just going to read through them, and then I think we can also finish this call for today. Or then let's just maybe, or Charlie, what was your idea around like delegation? We should probably go through the screens together at some point.
Yeah, I think just read these out, and then I think it's just us. Anybody can hang around if they want to, just to go through the prototype and decide how we're going to do the next few days.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Then let me just read through this, and I'll stop the recording, and then maybe we'll take like a 5-minute break, and then we can go through the screens. That'd be cool.
Perfect.
Cool. So we have 4 votes on creating a metadata to unify skill trees across organizations. So this is kind of along the idea of creating a data model or graph, but we'll have to see how that will join into the project. Then we have another one: how might we display audit trail of skill verification? That also makes sense. Probably something to think about how to implement it. Wasn't particularly part of the feedback, I would say, but it's definitely something that's relevant for any kind of skill assessment. Then we have here a bunch of votes. How might we make the payment calculator default to the suggested split and make it just explain it better? Mentoring, giving tasks to others is not quite clear. So I just like the calculator, just needs to be a little bit improved, which is fair. Then we have, yes.
Andre, a quick question. Do you want to screen share for the sake of recording?
Oh yeah, sure. There we go. So I'm just gonna, here. So we're just going through these here, and this is about the payment calculator, and then we have some here on the top right. How might we make clear what the project is for you? Show collaborator application. Okay, so these are actually a bit different. So how might we make clear that the project is for you? That's related to the project dashboard overview, just to kind of categorize them better and show off what these are. How might we add more details about the applicant, what's relevant to what they're applying for? This is more project related. So in the actual project screen. And then how might we show all collaborator applications and improve filters? That's also something related to the collaborator applications within the project page, so that people can find, like, scroll through all of them. Yeah.
On that previous one, I think it also relates more to kind of like the task overview. So it was kind of like when they're seeing the tasks they've applied for, if they've done those tasks before and how many times they've done those tasks. I think maybe I'm wrong.
But which tasks do you mean? Sorry.
So when you're approving a it links probably to the profile, the project page, and like approving an applicant.
Right.
And you can actually like see what is their experience doing those tasks, for example.
Good point.
At the moment, it just says you completed that task in the past. And I remember for the feedback, it was like attesting that they've done that task several times. Therefore, you definitely knew that they were going to be able to do it. So you could then adjust the payment more towards them and so forth.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Okay. Yeah. True. Improving the prototype flow, just generally to make that prettier, and then offer others to endorse someone's skills. And this is probably also related to any type of skill that people can just confirm someone that they have done a particular type of work, and that's how they would categorize it into a skill. So yeah, that sounds good so far. Let's take, like, I don't know, 10 minutes or so break. and then come back and go through the screens, if that's cool.
See you at 10. Oh,
All right.
20 past. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Guys, I need to jump off, but thanks for the session. I'll be catching up with recordings, okay?
Cool. Thank you so much, Michael. See you soon.
Take care.
so much.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.